deal with it. Every user interface that has ever been designed for a patching application was wasted work that never should have happened. The patching interface on Xbox, the patching interface on Java, the patching interface on Winamp, the Windows experience has been polluted by user experiences that should not exist. Someday, there will be one patching interface on Windows. It'll cover every application, and it will be invisible. And I tell you, whenever this happens, will be a glorious day for security.
Hold on. he's making predictions about what we're eventually going to be able to do. What? 1 second here, seriously. I mean, look, that's a beautiful utopia that you're painting out there. But you know, the key thing there is that's not going to happen unless we can actually start working together with the other vendors and everything. That's not. We are all growing up in this industry at different paces. Some of us took some hard lessons earlier in the game, and we're much further ahead than a lot of the people who have not had the wonderful experience of being a market leader. So, you know, I mean, that's the thing. So when we do actually try to reach out to other organizations to help them get to, you know, benefit from some of our experiences. That's one of the purposes of the Microsoft Vulnerability Research Program when we report vulns to other vendors. That's part of the goal of the SDL outreach team that actually focuses on bringing the SDL to third parties. This is about platform security. He's right about that, but it's not some, you know, magical thing that can, you know, the flights of angels are going to open up in the sky. This is going to take work from all of us.
Sorry, one quick thing.
I have no control.
Yeah, okay.
Who's the biggest guy in the
Yeah.
room? Can I have him up here?
Now, basically, I'll just respond to Dan, because I agree with almost most of what he says. But the reality, though, is that, yes, he does have to get oil changed. The reality is, when I buy anything, period, that makes my life easier, what Dan is saying is he wants all the benefits but none of the responsibility, none of the cost. That's important, because it's like, what happens if you walk into a car dealership and say, hey, I just purchased a $30,000 car, and now you expect me to put gas in the car every week and pay $40 every week to drive my car that I just paid $30,000 for? Are you out of your mind? And then an oil change every 3,000 miles? I paid $30,000 for the car. But what happens is people buy a computer, they pay $1,000 for a computer if they buy a good one these days, and then it's like, I have to pay $50 to renew my antivirus, anti-firewall software, and all that sort of stuff. I paid $2,000 or whatever for my computer, and now I have to pay $50 a year. Are you out of your mind? And that's what we let the average computer do these days. And then we call that blaming the user. Hell yes, I'm blaming the user, because they want the benefits of the computer, and they're living in some dream world that there's no responsibility or cost that comes with it. Yes, if you get a benefit, there is a cost, period. You want sidewalks, you pay taxes. You want, sorry.
So I actually totally agree with you, but my point is this. When you buy that car, and you don't put gas in it, or you don't put oil in it, or you don't get it fixed, and the engine seizes up, does your warranty work? Are you going to get it fixed? Nope. Guess what, user? You're going to pay to get it fixed because you violated your warranty. Same thing, going back to what you said. People want things to work. They make the assumption that it's fixed, that they can do whatever they want, and if it breaks or if they get exploited, someone else is responsible for addressing that issue and getting them their $50 back, or saving their credentials. At the end of the day, the common consumer needs to take some level of responsibility. They must be liable for something. Something along the way. Common passwords, for God's sake, anything. But we cannot keep passing that off onto big business or the security people to address that issue, because we're just not getting anywhere. 90% of what is out there today is a common user. My mother is on Facebook feeding some dog that I have no idea. I swear to God, it's not a joke. I swear, it makes me sick. She's a senior citizen, and she changed her flight because she had to feed a dog or else it would run away. I didn't know what she was talking about. But this is what I'm saying. And if her dog ran away, that was an issue. God forbid if she couldn't feed the dog because she had a security exploit. But at the end of the day, there must be some level of responsibility for a common user for doing irresponsible acts. And that's really where we need to get to. We can't just all pass that along the way. And I get it. I want my car to work. I get what you're saying, but we have this poor gentleman here who's been exceedingly patient.
Okay, so we've been discussing what the users should do, what the security researchers should do. I have a question to the panel. So are we going to see a day wherein the companies are going to have a scoreboard, let's say, in which they say, okay, we knew about this vulnerability on this day, we are working on this patch. We knew about this vulnerability on this day, we are still working on the patch. And maybe to help all those imbeciles who want some fame, also put their names there up. Is that going to happen?
So you're talking about public, like, kind of like a big matrix? Here's
the,
Microsoft, here's Red Hat, here's blah, blah, blah.
From the vendors themselves. Okay, this is a scoreboard or scorecard, and we are working for the last so many days.
I mean, frankly, as far as attribution goes, when Microsoft and other vendors put out a release, they say, and credit goes to, whoever today it was from ISS. People get that credit. The problem is that, that's one issue. The credit's there. As far as vendor scoreboards go, it'll look really good. I don't think it'll happen because a lot of vendors aren't going to do it, and it does Microsoft no good to say, well, we had this level of vulnerability, because how do you equate something that's like a minor fix for some crappy program that they have that nobody uses compared to a fundamental flaw in like Microsoft, or let's say a fundamental bug in Microsoft, like Windows? There's a difference because it's not all vulnerabilities are the same, and it's not all like you're going to replace, like, critical vulnerabilities are fixed within X number of days. That could happen, but maybe you'll get Microsoft doing it. Maybe you'll get Sun doing it. Well, does Sun exist?
Kind of all be in the same window frame there?
Yeah,
Not
no,
5 years,
they
but maybe a year?
But the problem is that nobody is going to do it when they suck. You're not going to see Mac or Apple do that, like Mac OS was patched within so many days.
So I think there's also a fundamental oversimplification of all criticals are in this some same category here. An architecture critical is going to take a lot more work, a lot more testing than a one-off implementation error. And they can both be rated as critical impact, but they are not equal by any means. Similarly. A vulnerability in a shared library. This is absolutely not all vulns are created equal, and you cannot make some arbitrary mandatory window for severity, because that's not actually the operative. That's not the operative in determining how long it might take to address a particular issue.
Can we have our mic back?
Yes.
Oh, you want?
No,
Andrea has a question.
I just want to keep it up.
You look frightened.
It's been a long day.
It has been. Okay, so we've talked about personal responsibility. We've talked about the company responsibilities on the program side. What do you guys think about the idea that some governments have that the patches should go to the government first and the government can patch their computers first before the rest of the user community patches? And I won't say what nationalities do that.
No, I'll take that because, frankly, the government has a, I'm going to say a stupid philosophy that, most of the critical infrastructure will remain in private hands, and that if the government says, well, let us fix government computers first, in many cases, I don't care about some of the computers in the government. I care about more of the critical infrastructure computers that are left vulnerable because the government says, oh, we'll let the critical infrastructure companies do whatever the hell they want. Holding it back for just the government, it would be nice maybe for some of the, well, frankly, I would like to assume it would be unnecessary for all the computers that are out there, like on critical systems, because they should not be attached to online networks, but that's a separate issue.
So, Andrew, was your question not so much just government, but critical infrastructure maybe? Or is it across the board? So SCADA, all of that, right? Oof.
Oh, yeah, if it's SCADA, just write it off. It'll never get patched.
Yeah, so a lot of theoretical models will say, well, there's us and there's them. There's government and there's not government. There's important and there's not important. And, theoretical models are nice and, slick, but everything is blurry these days. You have your purely public assets. You have your public-private assets. You have your mostly private but highly regulated assets. You have your mostly private, used to be highly regulated, but a little less now assets. And the idea that there's a line is there is no line, and that's the problem. Or not problem, but that's ultimately the idea that government should patch first. What does that mean? Is really a question.
And when you say highly regulated, geographical location, regulations don't cross boundaries very well because we're not on the same sheet of music, right? Question. He said, that's all right. He said it a couple times.
So if you did give it to governments first, who here thinks that the government could actually keep the secret? And second, which government?
You mean which government agency or what?
No, there's 190 governments, so even more than that. I wanted to just chime in on one of the things that the gentleman over here said, because I think your question was not correctly understood, or maybe I understood it wrongly. But what you were describing looks more like a database of patches under development, so that you know that something is coming up. That was what I heard from your question. And actually some companies, primarily vulnerability research companies, are doing that. Yeah, that's the only one that deals with another huge company that takes a lot of time to fix bugs. So yeah, and let's leave it at that. But
You have a question? No, he's saying 5 minutes. You telling me to shut up in 5 minutes?
Yep.
I'm doing my job. I'm giving you 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks. So regarding that question, that kind of makes sense. The problem is except from putting some pressure and not very effective at all on the vendor, what contribution does that give to the average user or administrator? Really none, because if you're an administrator and you're administering, let's put the elephant on the table, the Oracle patches. You already know that in a quarter you will get another bunch of patches. You already know that there's a lot of vulnerabilities that have already been disclosed to them and they're not patched yet. It's enough that you attend any course by David or by Alexander Kornbrust, and you will see 0 days, or even discover 0 days as part of the course, because it's very easy to find out vulnerabilities in some components of that database. And I'm not deliberately bashing Oracle. It's just like, because it's probably the type of list of vulnerabilities that spurred your question. What does that list? What good does that list do? Not much, in my opinion. I don't know, but
no, it's up to you.
No, go ahead.
We only have 5 minutes.
I know. So we wanted to kind of 3 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna have to talk at Pam speed, right? Okay. So just real quickly, a standards guidance kind of perspective, right? So putting standards or guidance around anything. Let's just say, like you seem to have a very well developed, historical practice, and Microsoft, we all know, does for vetting and distributing, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, are we evolving too quickly to even adhere to a standard or a guideline, if you will, because things are evolving so fast, right? So we're having a hard time keeping up with deployment, when to talk about it, what to disclose, what to test, what to evaluate, who to notify, when to notify, is it government, is it not, is it big business? So at the end of the day, will we ever get to a collective understanding on what responsible disclosure is and what the process is associated with it? We're always,